In this video, we're going to be looking at rounding, and this is arguably one of the most important topics that you're going to do because there's such a large amount of marks available in the GCSE exams for rounding. Okay, you're expected to do it so often, and sometimes it's not even like a mark. It's just you have to do this to get the answer, and then they'll stick a little rounding on the end, and it's just expected that you can do all the different types. Okay, so let's start with decimal places, which is often is abbreviated to DP. So 1 decimal place would look something like that. And all that means is if I have a number like 3.24, we want to cut this number after the first decimal place. So there's a decimal point. This is the first decimal place, and this would be the second. We want to cut this after the first. So you should always have a number where you have 1 digit after the dot. Okay. Now, we could leave this as 3.2, but we have to be very careful. The number after the line where I've cut this, if it is a 4 or below, so 4, 3, 2, 1 and 0, we leave it as a 3.2. We round down. If this digit here is a 5, 6, 7, 8 or a 9, so 5 or above, then this goes up by 1. What does that look like? 3.47. We cut the number after the first decimal place, so 3.4, but the next digit rounds up. So this will be increased by 1. So we either leave the decimal alone, 4 and below, or we increase the decimal by 1 if this number is 5 or above. So that's the general rule with rounding. 5 and above, we go up. 4 and below, we go downwards. Okay, let's have a look at this. 2.95. Now, when we cut this line, 2.9, then we look at the next digit and it's a 5. So we're now rounding up, but we're on a 9. So what happens there? Essentially, we've got on our number line 2.9, and we're going up from the 1 decimal place, we're going up in tenths. So 2.9, the next tenth would be 3.0. The next tenth would be 3.1. So we're going up in 0.1s essentially. And 2.95 is exactly halfway. Anything halfway or more rounds up. So essentially the 5 is making this go up to a 0, a 10. So it's like a 0 carried a 1 from when you're adding. And that can be very complicated when we have this, because usually we just leave it as the 3.4 or 3.5. Like that's our 2 choices. But here it's 2.9. Well, what's next? 2.10? That can be very confusing. It's not 2.10, it's 3.0. So the 9 goes up to a 10, and then yes, we have to then increase the next one by 1. But that can be very confusing because students will try to do this kind of thing. Right, the 5 makes that go up to a 3, and then that one will go up by 1 to a 4. Like they try to keep going, but you don't do that. You just increase this digit by 1. If it hits 10, that's the only time you mess with anything in front. So yes, that can be confusing, but 99% of the time, it's not going to be like that. It's going to be something like 3.87, cut the line, 3.8, but the 7 makes it go up to 3.9, and you just have to mess with this 1 digit here. Okay, so there are some difficulties around what happens if it's a 9. Okay, but apart from that, it's very straightforward. Okay, so this is decimal places. The next type of rounding that we need to do is significant figures. So significant figures, nearly always 3SF, but if you're coming here from the estimation video, 1SF is also quite common when we're doing our estimation. So 3 significant figures. Let's say we have 1.275. Okay, we start counting our significant figures from the left. So left to right, 1, 2, 3. All of these digits here are significant figures, 1, 2, 3. And we just cut our number off at the third significant figure in this case. So 1.27. Just like the decimal points, the decimal places, the 5 will raise this up to 1.28. So we increase by 1 because of the presence of the 5. If this was a 4 or below, like that, then this would stay as 1.27. So no different here with the decimals. We're just counting where we cut the line in a different way. Like one decimal place would be like this. 3 significant figures, it's just a slightly different position of this cutoff line. Okay, now significant figures can be tricky if we start with a 0. 0.5792. Okay, and let's round this to 2 significant figures. Okay, when we go from left to right, this first 0 doesn't count. Okay, we only start counting significant figures once we hit a digit that is not 0. So 0, we ignore this. 1, 2, like that. There's our second significant figure. Okay, cut off here, 0.57, but because of the 9, 0.58, we round up. Okay, what about if we had 0.1053, and you might be thinking, okay, I count my significant figures 1, because I ignore this 0. What about this 0? Well, now I've started counting everything counts, regardless if it's a 0 or not. So once you start counting, you count everything, okay, but not the first 0. If I had 0.00472, then this would be my first significant figure, the 4. I ignore all these zeros and start counting from here. So it's not an easy topic. It has a lot of, if this is happening, do this. If there's zeros here, don't count it. There's a lot of rules. Okay, but once you've practiced this a few times, and you can practice this on the app, this will be taken care of. You'll start to understand the patterns here. Okay, the last part of significant figures is what happens if you're dealing with whole numbers. So 72,351, and we're going to round this to 3 significant figures. Okay, we start counting from left to right just the same way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like that. 3 significant figures is there, but we don't just cut it off like the decimals, because you're then saying 72,000 is the same as 723. No, we don't cut it off like that. But what we do say is this third significant figure is in the hundreds column. Thousands, hundreds, tens, units. From primary school, we're in the hundreds column. So we want the nearest hundred. 72,300, 72,400. Which one is closest? Halfway would be 72350, and this is 72351. So it's very slightly closer to this one. Okay, that was a lot of thinking. So is there any way that we can kind of make this a little bit easier on ourselves? Yes. We can cut the number just like before, but after that line, we make them zeros. Okay. 72,300, no, because of the 5, we would round that up to 724. Okay, so we cut the line, make them zeros, but we also look at this digit and decide if we round this up or keep it down. So let's do 4731. We'll do 3 significant figures, and we cut the line 1, 2, 3 digits in. Everything after becomes a 0, and it's a 1, so that won't do anything to the 3. That leaves it as 4730, like that. Okay. If that was a 6, then this would round up by 1, and then we would have 4740. Everything after the line becomes a 0 with whole numbers. Okay, so there was a lot there, right? Go back and practice on the app significant figures and decimal places, and try to see these intricacies, these little challenges in action, and prepare yourself for that. Because like I say, this is a huge topic. It might be like 10% of the marks available in your GCSE overall. So do try and work on your rounding skills as best you can.